Hello, everyone, and welcome to the real estate market analysis review for Morgan Hill, California for October of 2022. This is where we sit down, take a look back, and try to get a handle on how the market in Morgan Hill has been acting. How have sellers been jumping into the market or not jumping into the market, and how have buyers been doing? So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look. As we usually do, we're going to go ahead and start with the active listings for October of 2022. Now, something I want to make sure is clear here, what we've got in terms of how I'm presenting this data. If you look at it, you'll see that on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see there's two columns in that chart. That represents the same month last year versus this year. So that way, side by side, you can get a feeling for what October of last year was performing at versus October of this year. So as we can see from that, in October of 2021, we had 47 active listings in Morgan Hill. This year, in October of 2022, we had 78. So that was a 66% increase from the same time last year. And then the other part of this table, and we're trying to kill two birds with one stone here. We're trying to make it clear how we're performing compared to the same time last year. But then we can also look back over previous months so that we can determine what kind of trend we're seeing. And right now, the trend is really pretty flat. We can see we sort of peaked in June of 2022 with 102 active listings in Morgan Hill. And just to sort of calibrate you to what this should mean to you, depending on which hat you're wearing. If you're a seller, this is the amount of competition that you have for the attention of buyers. So right now, you've got about 78 homes out there pursuing those buyers, trying to get the attention of buyers. If you are a buyer, this is a good measure of how many homes do you have to choose from right now. And as we look at this, we can see compared to the same time last year, if you just sort of take, the last half of 2021 and compare it to this time of year, compare it from September to January of last year, or September to December, we are way up in terms of inventory numbers. We're accumulating more and more homes, fewer homes are being listed, but what we're seeing right now is a very growing inventory. So buyers have more to choose from and sellers are having to compete more for the attention of those buyers. Okay, next. Let's take a look at total new listings. This represents the number of folks who actually listed their homes in the month of October. So they sat down with a real estate agent, they signed the listing agreement, they agreed on a sales price, all the terms and conditions relating to the listing were set, and they did that in the month of October. Now, what we can see is that we have fewer homes being listed this year in October of 2022 than we did last year. Again, we can focus on these last two columns. One is for October of 2022, the other is for October of 2021. So we have a 19.3% decline in the total number of homes added in the month of October. Now, if we look back just over past months, we can see that we've peaked in May of 2022 in terms of the number of homes added to the marketplace, which makes sense, right? May, June makes a lot of sense. That peak sort of straddles March through June, though. And I think we're going to see a similar dynamic in 2023 in terms of what months we can expect the highest number of homes to be added to the marketplace. And an interesting thing to note, if you're someone in a seller's state of mind and you're thinking about selling your home in 2023, you should start thinking about that now. You should already be thinking about how you're going to prepare your home, what things you might need to do, because you need to be the best home in the group of homes that are similar to yours. So you need to be that standout because those are the homes that are going to sell first and they're the homes that are going to sell for the most. But in terms of what we can expect for 2023, I think we'll see the same thing. And honestly, February and March seems like the sweet spot. And it's the sweet spot in terms of sellers right now, simply because you're getting into the market earlier before tons of new homes have been added. And you're not going to have to compete with the homes that get added in April, May, and June, assuming you can get activity going on your home early in the listing process. Okay, the next set of numbers we want to look at here is the total number of homes sold. So this represents how many homes closed escrow in the month of October in 2022. As we can see, it's a pretty dramatic drop, 36.4% drop from the same time last year. We can see that comparing October to October, we had 42 homes that sold this year in 2022. We had 66 homes that sold in October of 2021. In terms of trends, now again, communities like Morgan Hill are a little bit tougher. You're going to see a little bit more jagged ups and downs because the sample size is smaller, right? We're not dealing with San Jose that has hundreds and hundreds of homes being sold each month, or the county, which has thousands. But we can spot the trend, and we can see that the total number of homes sold has been declining since April, which is a little bit of a shocker. We would normally expect to see those sales increasing as we moved further into the year, but as we know, we've had interest rates going crazy. So everything has been depressed in terms of the overall trends of homes being sold. And of course, because we are seeing this number of homes sold not exceeding the number of homes that are listed, we are simply going to get a greater accumulation of homes in the inventory, which just adds more and more to that total homes on the market number. Average list price. Now, this is the original list price. And when I say original list price, again, referring to that time that a seller spent with a real estate agent signing that listing agreement, this is the amount that they originally listed the home for. It doesn't mean, this doesn't reflect any changes to the price between the time it was listed and the time that it was sold. In fact, some of these homes may not have sold yet. This is simply when someone listed their home, this is the price. And the reason why I like to report it that way, instead of it being what the list price was at the time that it sold, is or what the list price is now after it's been reduced, is because we want to calibrate ourselves to the expectations of sellers. What were sellers thinking their home was worth at the time they listed it for sale? So this is a way to calibrate to that. And as we can see, this number has been dropping. It's up 10.3% from the same time last year. So we are continuing to see home value increases in the month of October. But as we look back historically, and again, this is one that tends to not be a very smooth set of data because of the low numbers. We have seen a gentle decline since May of 2022 from 1.7 million down to 1.394 million as the average now. And there's really two factors that play into that. The one reason why average sales price is reduced is because buyers are being forced into lower price points. Whatever they were originally approved for, as interest rates have gone up, they've had to adjust the total amount they would borrow, which affects the total amount they can spend on that next home. So in addition to seeing a push down of where the activity is, we're also simply seeing the luxury market, or the higher priced, the top 10% priced homes being pushed down because of that low demand. Next, let's take a look at the average sales price for homes in October of 2022 for Morgan Hill. Now, this is what the home sold for. What if it closed in October of 2022, it's reflected here. And it's another thing to keep in mind as we look at closed sales or sales prices. These are often transactions or escrows that are closing after the offer was accepted in the month before. So many of these will have been offers that were accepted in September. So the sales price is a little bit of a lagging indicator compared to these other numbers, because it takes 30 to 45 days to close an escrow. So clearly this is going to be representative of what folks were paying in September rather than what they're paying in October. So I like to point that out since it's a little bit of a lagger. And as we are seeing this number being so dramatically changing in so many communities, it's a good idea to kind of keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, in October of 2021, we had 1,416,000 was the average sales price. In October of 2022, 1,288,000. So actually down 9.1% from the same time last year. If we want to look at the trend, it kind of peaked in the April to June and July timeframe, and the trend now has been down, and I believe it will continue to do that. I think we're going to see home sales prices continuing to decline a bit here as we move into the end of the year, and as we move into the first quarter. We'll see what sort of pivots might happen there. But my guess is that we will see, unless we see some major changes in lending or interest rates or what we're having happen with inventory, I think this large inventory number is still going to continue to push down home sales prices as sellers compete more and more for the attention of those buyers. All right, so let's jump ahead here and take a look at the percent of list price. Now, This is one where we do pay attention to what the list price was at the time the home sold. And in this particular case, while we were trying to establish the mindset of the seller at the time that they listed, this is the mindset of the buyer at the time they made their offer. So as we look at this number, this reflects what the buyer was looking at in terms of sales price. So this isn't related to the original price. This reflects the buyer comes in, they see what the home is currently listed for, regardless of what changes to that asking price might have been, and made offers that were accepted based on this. So let's go ahead and try to just sort of work our way through this. Last year, homes in Morgan Hill in October of 2021 were selling for 104% of the list price at the time the offer was made. So that's 4% over asking price. In 2022, in the same month, we had 98.7%. So a 1.3% drop off in terms of what sellers were getting compared to what their home was listed for at the time the property sold. So this tells us a few things. One, we're not seeing a whole lot of multiple offer scenarios, right? In some neighborhoods that absolutely is still happening, but overall in Morgan Hill, we're not seeing those multiple offers. And we'll see in a minute here that reflected in days on market, for instance. So this is a number that you can take home, and if you're a buyer, take some comfort from in realizing you can make offers below asking price on the average property, and you can potentially get that offer accepted. And I think that's going to become more and more true as we move forward. Now, if we take a look now over our shoulder, just at past months versus October of this year versus October of last year, we can see the trend has been consistently down since the peak in March of 2022. We had a little bit of a decrease in April of 2022, another decrease in May, another in June, another in July. It has literally simply been dropping each month as we arrive here in October at 98.7% of list price being what homes are tending to sell for. That's a 5.1% decrease from the same time last year and represents a recalibration of the market to the point where once we got below 100%, we were starting to see a more competitive market for sellers where they are having to really get in front of more buyers and become that best property. And even in those cases, frequently having to take below what their asking price was. And remember, this is reflective of what the list price was at the time that the home was sold. So since we had over half of the homes nearly half the homes in Morgan Hill also get price reductions, they would have taken a price reduction plus they then would have taken less based on these offer numbers. All right, next, total days on market. We're at 27 days in October of 2022 in Morgan Hill. 16 days was what we were seeing the same time last year. And that 16-day number wasn't an organic number. That wasn't, it takes 16 days to get a home sold. That was listing agents are saying we will not consider any offers until such and such a date. That is typically why it was taking 16 days to get homes sold. Not the case anymore. That's a 68.8% increase in the total number of days to get sold. And we can see that we sort of bottomed out in April of 2022 with just 9 days and have really ramped up since then. And again, this is another one of those where you'll see some outliers where we have months where it's very high. That is typically a single property that was simply on the market for a very long time, pushing those numbers out. But if we sort of normalize this and think of it as a curve, you can see that we absolutely have seen a dramatic increase over the past few months. And I think what we'll see is a flattening. Once you sort of get to that 30 to 35, 30 to 40 day window, things are getting far more competitive. And what's also interesting is statistically, sellers psychologically start being willing to consider below asking price offers once they creep around that 30-day mark. The reality starts to set in that their home isn't selling, and really one of the only things that they can adjust is that asking price to draw in more buyers. So the competition for buyers' attention is really at the center of October's numbers, and these additional days to get homes sold is really reflective of that competitive market. Now, as I mentioned before, we had price reductions in October of 2022. This month in October, it was 45.5%. In September, it was 47.9%. So more sellers adjusting their price down last month, but still some sellers adjusting it down in the month of October. So that's still a huge chunk of the inventory seeing price reductions. And the good news is because it's a larger number, it indicates that more sellers are coming to grips with the fact that the market has changed. We saw some resistance to that for a while. Then we had a really big month, I believe it was last month or the month before in some of these areas, where the number of homes that had reductions was gigantic. So take that for what it's worth. I think that's good news for buyers. I think it's good news for sellers. Sellers will be able to get their homes sold. They'll be able to get on to the next phase once they've decided that they're going to accept a lower price. For buyers, prices are going to become more reasonable. If you were trying to buy a year ago, you should be seeing on average prices below what you were seeing a year ago on the average property in Morgan Hill, and we'll just see how far that proceeds into 2023. If we're going to look in the crystal ball and try to figure out what's going to be happening in 2023, I think we continue to see market adjustments relating to exceptionally high inventory and a challenging interest rate scenario where buyers simply cannot buy homes at higher price points. And in order to get sold for those homes where it's an option for them to drop that price, I think we see more of that. All right, folks, thank you very much for taking time out to check out the Morgan Hill real estate market for October of 2022. If I can be of any help, please find me at soldbyrobert.com. If you're looking to sell your home, I've got a great tool right there on the front page for you to get a free online instant estimate of your home's value. If you prefer a more in-depth estimate, I can do a comparable market analysis, which will be far more exact and using the most up-to-date data relating to our local markets. If you're a buyer, I've got a great search tool on my website at soldbyrobert.com. Both of those right on the front page, so you will not miss them. You're not going to have to dig around to get access to these two tools. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you all next time.